Hi, my name is Kiara the Goddess, and you are watching Kiara Loves TV. Thank you so much for watching. I am recording this right now with my little light on, and it is officially time to relax. Hello, and welcome to another video. If you were a kid in the early 2000s and a misfit or an outsider, you probably love Fairly OddParents. And that's not an insult because I honestly don't understand why this show does not get more attention. When I was a kid, this was my show. This show was my religion. It was before Gilmore Girls, before Hannah Montana, before I had any idea about what a fan looks like. I was raised by Fairly OddParents. Today, I'd like to break down all the ways that Fairly OddParents was very ahead of its time. Kiara loves TV. Yes, I made a theme song so that I can talk about all my favorite shows. Oh, yeah. And this is just your disclaimer that this is not me talking about any of the actors themselves, but more so their characters. Please do not attack me in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even those who disagree with me. But let's keep it friendly. All right, let's get started with the show. There is so much to get into here. Honestly, talking about this show brings me back to my childhood in the way that this was where I first started to gain a love for TV and movies. I think that between this show and a lot of other shows, it can be an opportunity to think about mainstream and what that actually means. In the way that I can sit up here and say that for me, the mainstream shows in Nickelodeon when I was a kid was Drake and Josh, Fairly OddParents, SpongeBob. Someone else might say Rugrats or just pretty much not one of the shows that I named. So let's start from the very beginning. This show was created by Butch Hartman, airing on March 30th, 2001. What I found really interesting in my research is that this is a man who has a lot of range. He did work on Family Guy, Danny Phantom, Tough Puppy. He's even done some work in some books. He's a writer, he does voice work. He is a wonderful sketch artist as he has done the sketches for Timmy and a lot of his other different characters. And the voice actors, these are not ordinary people. These are people with pure talent. I have spent so much time over the years watching behind the scenes footage of how they do these voices, and it is amazing to me. I am a very big fan of some really good voice work. Tara Strong has one of the largest resumes in voice acting. I have linked a video in the description box to basically give you guys a really in-depth insight to just how many voices that this magical woman does. But in this show specifically, she is the voice of Timmy. She does the voice of Poof. She plays Brittany, Vicky's mom, and many others. I mean, that list is so long. It would take me forever to get through it. Grey Griffin is another one of those really special gems that has given us so many nurturing and sweet and supple voices over the years. They have D. Bradley Baker on here as well, which if you guys do not know, he does the voice of Perry the Platypus on Phineas and Ferb. He is an amazing talent. I mean, he just is. The same person that does the voice of Dark Laser is the same person that does the voice of AJ's dad, and I can't unhear it now. I don't know if I should go on and on, but like I kind of want to, because it's like, this is an amazing voice cast. Like, I don't think people understand, like people who are not into the geeky side of the voice acting and like the different levels that like your voice can take you and transforming your voice from one thing to another. Like, that is a talent, and I am all for that. Like, I just wanted to take a moment to really talk about voice acting and just how amazing that is. We even have Tom Kenny in here doing the voice of Cupid. Tom Kenny, if you don't know about Tom Kenny is SpongeBob. Okay, like, he's SpongeBob. Tom Kenny is not just SpongeBob. He is so many other things. Him and Tara Strong and Seth MacFarlane, these voice actors, they're like the holy trinity. Like, and I would include Robin Williams as well in that, honestly, because the voice acting talent is just, oh my God, like they can just take it so many places, and I love it so much. You're drawn in by the story of a young boy who's 10 years old, neglected by his parents because, oh my God, can we please get into that in a second? And he is given fairies as a way to pretty much help him cope. They grant his every wish as long as it does not do something that is generally immoral, like whether that be using magic to pass a test or using magic to cheat at a game or something like that for money purposes. You can't make someone fall in love with you. Yeah, that whole deal. As long as it doesn't violate any of that, he's able to make a wish. Timmy's wishing usually gets him into predicaments, but in the end, he usually learns his lesson. His fairies take over as his adopted parent. I think that bond between them is just so special. And it's like, it really keeps Timmy from fully diving into that sadness that would come from him realizing just how much his parents do not care about him. And I know that it's just, I know that it is literally just a cartoon, and it probably was never intended to be that deep. If you think about this in a real life scenario, like this kid, oh my God, I feel bad for this kid. His parents literally do not care about him so much that they sit around and make jokes. They're making jokes about how much they do not want to be around and they do not want to be parents. And the thing is, it's not like he's some bad kid. It's not like Timmy is a kid who just gets in a bunch of trouble and tries to do a bunch of bad things. He has a really sweet heart, but for some reason, his parents just don't want to be parents. So they give him a babysitter that pretty much abuses him every single, oh my God, this is so sad. Do y'all hear me? Do y'all hear what's coming out of my mouth right now? Like, this is so sad. They give him, I'm so emotional. This babysitter that like does stuff like tying him up and chaining him up. And like, on one hand, I'm like, I'm really trying to see how that was ever supposed to be funny. And then I'm like, was it ever supposed to be funny? There are a lot of questionable things that happen in the show. Like as far as Timmy goes and his parents and all that's like really the darkest thing. I think one of the darkest things anyway about this show is that his parents literally do not love him at all. In this show, neglected kids are gifted with fairies. Most children have one fairy, but Timmy has two. His fairies are married. They have the exact same energy as Ron and Hermione. Apparently this happens because Butch Hartman, the creator of the show, is a Harry Potter fan. Someone online also pointed out that often the head pixie is called HP, which also can be a thing for like Harry Potter. I'm not gonna lie, I really do like this whole theory about how that's all intended. What I've come to love most about their relationship is that Cosmo is not always masculine. I mean, the stereotypical feminine qualities are sometimes ones that Cosmo adapts. Not all the time, but sometimes. I love that the way that they express their love and themselves is not limited to their gender. Timmy's hat is pink. Although Timmy's hat is pink not because they just chose pink specifically. Timmy's hat is pink because Butch Hartman ran out of blue ink. So okay, just let me add this one thing. They kept it in. I mean, it's not like they took it out because, oh, he's a boy, he can't have a pink hat. They kept it in. I related to Timmy a lot because just like him when I was a kid, when I was watching the show, I hated being a kid too. Guy Moon is an absolute legend in my mind. Guy Moon has a certain type of flavor that just really reels you in. It's very whimsical, airy. It's like the sound of the most precious flute blowing, and it's magical. The music is also what helps you really just sink into this show. He did music for the Big Time Rush movie. He did music for the Brady Bunch movie. You know his music when you hear it. Another great composer is Hans Zimmer. Yes, because of The Lion King, and no, I'm not ashamed. This is one of the few shows where the main character is white, but the center of it is not that they're white and that everything good always happens for them. His best friend AJ is actually the character with a lot better fortune. AJ is a rich, smart black kid. I mean, this is why I love this show. This is one of the few shows that I grew up watching where they did not take an opportunity to make the black kid look like a total fool. There are no racist stereotypes, in my opinion. I haven't seen any. If anybody has, feel free to share that with me. But to my knowledge, I have not seen anything that was questionable as far as like something that was attacking my culture. Also, you know those two guys that Trixie's always hanging with, Chad and Tad? Chad is black and Chad is wealthy. It made me so happy to see that like this show was not afraid to show things like that. Now, unfortunately, we have to talk about what happened. They were in their bag. This is when that Jimmy Neutron and Timmy crossover happened, which was so iconic. And I feel like people have forgotten about that. Like, that was such an iconic moment. Like, when they switched the animation, whew, man, I miss the early 2000s. In season 4, I feel like that is when they had the best, most iconic episode just coming out. But slowly and surely, Fairly OddParents lost its audience. Over time, it became harder to watch Fairly OddParents. They changed a lot of the animation styles, and they've done this with SpongeBob as well, so it's not just them. I cannot speak for everyone else, but for me personally, that's where they lost me. They changed up the animation style, everything became a lot more like elastic. That's like the best way I can explain it. Here is how they used to animate the show. Here's how they started animating it. I've said this before. I said this in my Stewie and Roger video. This is part of what makes Stewie such an iconic character, because even as a baby, he's able to hold up his own storyline. He does not distract from the main storyline. He does not cause the storyline to become boring. But this was a case where having a baby literally killed the show. I remember when the trailer first came out for that, and I remember thinking to myself, like, it was exciting, but I could feel the shift in this show. After that, every single season, every single episode, everything that came after that just did not feel like the same Fairly OddParents that I grew up with. I actually want to do an entire video on what has happened with animation. Then after Poof came along, they introduced Sparky. And honestly, like, Sparky was a little bit funny to me at first. And between the time of them adding Sparky and then turning around and adding Chloe, a whole new character that late into the show, and she just, I don't know, she just didn't really blend well. Even like as a kid, I remember just feeling like they're trying so hard to revive this show and it's not happening. I have always been like this with TV shows. I've always been like this. I don't even know what this is. I just, like, this whole thing we're talking about, like how I knew the moment that Chloe showed up on that screen, I literally told myself, I said, it won't be long now before they try to cancel the show. In fact, before then, they weren't really showing a lot of episodes of Fairly OddParents, like around that time before they introduced Chloe. They hadn't been showing any Fairly OddParents episodes in like a really, really long time. Like, I remember I was looking for Fairly OddParents and I could not find it. And when they finally showed it again, it was with the new episodes with Chloe. And the thing is, we never got like this big goodbye ending. That's what hurts the most. I hate when a show has a bad ending. I can't stand it. I literally cannot stand it. Or no ending at all. Like the thing that happened with Girlfriends, Game of Thrones ending, those kind of things, like they just, they make my blood boil. And yes, I know that they have brought it back as like this live action. I'm not watching that. I'm not watching it. Sorry. I've given these reboots a chance. I have watched a lot of reboots and I have been disappointed a lot. I talked about this in another video. I am not trusting in reboots anymore. Like the only reboot that I'm trusting in at this point, or trying to give a little bit of trust to at this point, is the Little Mermaid one with Hallie. But other than that, I am not watching any more reboots. I can't do it anymore. They took a really classic character like Cosmo, who, oh my god, Cosmo is literally so funny, but they took his character and made him into a punching bag. We don't know where Chester and AJ went because we never see them anymore, although some of the fans have made fanfics about how they're in a relationship and they moved away. There's also a fan theory about how Poof is not really their baby. Like, he is Cosmo's son, but Poof is actually Juandissimo's son as well, because Juandissimo has purple eyes. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of believe it. And I love to see it. You know, this was a show that kept you watching at one point. It was a show that actually made you think. After a while, it just stopped making you think. It just became like background noise. Chloe just really annoyed me. I don't understand why Timmy had to share his fairies. Like, once I saw the trailer and I saw that he was going to be sharing his fairies with Chloe, I was done. I couldn't even watch it. Suddenly, all the things that we found interesting and we thought we wanted to know more about, we didn't, because they spent so much time talking about it. Quick little sidebar, I just got my new mic in the mail, and I don't know if you guys can really hear the difference, but I can. This is amazing. I feel like one of those men on those stupid podcasts where they talk about women and bash them for like 3 hours. I could say so much. I could get really close. Or I could be like that one episode of Fairly OddParents where Double T was in it and he was like, "Hey, I'm Double T." Okay, I'm done. Okay, I'm out of here. I think it's one of those things, and I really think that they've left enough legacy to not have to worry about like whether people remember that it was a good show. Also, a lot of things were just happening. Like, I think we were getting older. The original fans, like, you know, we weren't dealing with the same problems that we were dealing with when we first started watching the show. Whenever I go back and rewatch the show, I honestly only watch the episode episodes like before season, I think 6 is where it just felt different. I think even the generation that is after me has an even shorter attention span. Kids generally have a short attention span, especially me as a person with ADHD. Like I still to this day have the shortest attention span probably known to man. So I think it was a struggle to kind of figure out how to communicate with their new audience and keeps like some of the old audience too. One of the things that made the earlier seasons so special was that it felt like Timmy was making real connections. The bond between him and Wanda and Cosmo just felt unbreakable. They truly did feel like a family. But as I've seen a lot of fans say online, there felt like there was this shift between their relationship as well. It felt like once they had Poof, they kind of just pushed Timmy to the side. And I'm pretty sure this wasn't like intentional, but it's a really tricky idea because you're trying to add all these extra characters in that are taking up a lot of screen time and still trying to tell us that this is the Fairly OddParents show. I wish there was a way that they could go back and repair that bond and just like rebuild and strengthen that connection, because that's what kept you watching. Like I said earlier, Timmy had one of the saddest backstories. His parents, like, they don't even acknowledge him half the time. He's getting picked on at school by this bully. It's not a good time. It's not a good time to be Timmy at all. I am not the first person to make a video about this subject. These are just my thoughts on how this whole thing occurred. They kept a lot of classics relevant with the episode where Timmy's in the library supposed to be doing a report, and they mention all of these iconic books. Low-key, I kind of feel like Cosmo and Wanda are gender non-conforming. If you don't know what that is, it's basically when people don't act like what people expect them to act like according to their gender. Like in the way that sometimes Cosmo will randomly just poof himself into like a coconut bra and have lipstick on and everything. The way that Cosmo is often sometimes really sensitive about things. And I'm not trying to state that that's what makes a woman or that's what makes a man, but that's how society views it. And not all of society, just a large percentage of society views certain ways of expressing yourself as more feminine or more masculine. Honestly, like, I don't think that's the case. I think you like what you like and that's it. I don't really believe that certain things are only assigned for certain genders. I just don't believe that at all. And honestly, this show is probably why. It's probably why I feel that way, because like this is what I grew up on. If you look at it through a different lens and you take into account the fact that there's literally an episode called Transparents, you could definitely say like this was a show about what gender non-conforming parenting looks like, or even about modern parenting. They focus more on the well-being and happiness of Timmy. They allow him to make his own decisions, and they value his opinions on things. Butch Hartman has also told us that the show has been canceled at least 5 times. That is wild. I'm sorry, like that is wild to me. I literally cannot, like, what do you even do with that? And they tried to change Timmy's parents because I think that like people were noticing more and more and more just how much they did not care about Timmy. And so they did add in some scenes where like they have these super heart-to-heart moments, but then it's like they still, listen, they're not going to convince me that they care about him. And then that's just it. Timmy being an absolute hole to Tootie also got old really quick, especially with like the turning climate and, you know, like the feminist movement and all that. I think like that just got really tired really fast because he just was dogging her out literally for no reason. And I don't know if that's actually been said like openly in articles or in interviews or whatever. I don't know if anyone's actually come forth and said that before. I haven't heard it, but I do suspect that that was a contributing factor. Those movies, like I did not like them, and I wanted to like them so bad because I was like, oh yes, Fairly OddParents, live action, like duh, like this is gonna be great. But I didn't like it. I did not like it as a live action film. And for me, it didn't really have anything to do with anyone's performances. It just was about like, I think that I just really liked the cartoon more. Don't attack me. There was also an episode that brought up a lot of questions. Some people found this episode to be really confusing. Others have admitted that this was the real downfall of Fairly OddParents. It was also a little bit inconsistent because right after this episode, they went right back to the whole thing about nobody aging, and it never got explained or no one ever elaborated further on the subject. It was a really weird time. I didn't really watch that episode. By that time, I actually had stopped watching like the newer stuff on Nickelodeon or anything new, even if it was like an old show that I loved. That's around the time where I started reverting back to just watching stuff that came out way before I was even born. A lot of people also say that like it's not Butch Hartman's fault that the show went down. Apparently he was rushed and it was a lot of Nick's decisions But back to this whole Timmy secret wish thing. It was an hour-long special where Timmy is put on trial after he makes his millionth wish. It is the second episode in season 8. The Fairy Council has found out that Timmy's made a secret wish. This all is happening because Timmy has secretly made a wish when he was 10 years old to stay 10 forever, like 50 years ago, and the Fairy Council finds out about it. But the problem occurs with this because technology also advanced 50 more years, and the people that were currently turned into like really old people did not know how to use it. And apparently Mr. Crocker did not age because he was affected by trauma. They joined together and try to save Poof and the rest of the world because Poof has also been erased from existence and sent to the Hocus Pocus. Because as we know, Poof was one of Timmy's wishes, not like a genuine, like they had a baby kind of thing, like he wished for him. And eventually they kind of just restore everything back to the way it was in the end, and it's as though nothing even happened. On the Fairly OddParents wiki, someone stated, due to the way this wish was brought on Timmy by punishment, it seemed to temporarily have erased the normal timeline where Timmy grows up, marries Trixie Tang or Tootie, and has 2 children. Instead, Timmy's living in his parents' house, and everyone in the world is aged along with him, 50 years into the future, with no other births or deaths, making the youngest person in the world 50 years old, and previously adult or elderly characters, like Mr. Crocker's mom, impossibly old. So there's the confusion and the irritation I think that most people have with it. It's that it really threw things all out of whack and confused a lot of people on what the actual timeline is. I remember when it came on TV, and I remember like he was in court and it was this like trial thing. He made this wish and like all this time has passed by. Like, oh my God. Yeah, I'd say that's what killed it. Cause like, I mean, it became a different show, and I really loved this show. Like, this was one of my, like I said, this is one of my really precious childhood shows. In episode 1, the little bad boy that they try to send Timmy's fairies away to, why does he look like Sid in Toy Story? In the episode where they travel into Vicky's body, why does it remind me of the Phineas and Ferb episode where they got swallowed by Candace? I think that's like a trope or something, because I've actually seen a lot of episodes like that where like the main characters get shrunken down really small and travel through someone's body. It's happened in Rick and Morty. It's happened in Phineas and Ferb, as I stated before. I believe it happened in the Magic School Bus too. It happened in SpongeBob. Multiple times actually, I think. In episode 2, Timmy is basically doing virtual reality. Like, that's so funny how that's real now. They kept a lot of classics relevant with the episode where Timmy's in the library supposed to be doing a report, and they mention all of these iconic books. Also, did you guys know that allegedly the reason that Timmy's dad hates Dinkleburg so much is because he has no kids and he's wealthy? He hates the man because he has no kids and he can pretty much do whatever he wants. Like, how much do you hate your child? No, in fact, I'll do you one better. Tell me you hate your child without telling me you hate your child, and then like show a scene where he's literally just like scowling at his neighbor because he's cutting his grass in the morning and he doesn't have to make anybody cereal. As though he even really like spends time with Timmy and cares about Timmy and like nurtures him in the way he needs to be. And yes, I know it's just a cartoon. I know it's just a cartoon. Nobody has to tell me that. I know it's not that serious, but like, I'm just saying, if you look at this in a real way, in a way that is like in reality, this show is messed up. Like, it's so messed up. Also, did you guys also peep that Jorgen von Strangle is supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger? I never got that as a kid. I mean, I guess that makes sense because like I was a 2000s baby, but at the same time, like now that I learned that fact and I hear it, I can't unhear it now. Darren Norris is a tremendous talent. Like, he does the voice of Timmy's dad, he does the voice of Jorgen, and so many characters. I mean, just so many characters, and I just think that's just phenomenal. I'd like to end this video by saying thank you so much for watching, as I always do. I really just want to say thank you guys so much for watching and being a part of this whole YouTube journey thing. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. This is Double T, over and out.